I find it ironic that we act like spirits don't affect us anymore. Like, people used to get demon possessed, but not anymore. And it's not even just I believe in science types that say that. It's even the Christians these days. Like, Christianity is at least the brand of Christianity that I grew up with, has gotten to the point where they've just like ditched everything spiritual, almost, except for all the things happened a long time ago. But now everything is just, everything can be explained by science, and we just throw out everything spiritual. And it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it for even a moment, because if you look at what used to be explained by spirituality has now been relegated to the category of psychology or psychological health, which is kind of ironic if you think about it in itself, just because the name psychology, that psyche, literally means soul. It means the person's spirit. It's the study of the person's spirit. We don't think of it that way anymore, but that's exactly what it is, as opposed to neurology, which is the study of the neurons, the neural system, which is the actual biology, the physical part of it. Psychology is the spiritual part of it. Though, again, we seem to have lost that, even though it's right there in the name. We think in psychology that if you put a label on something, that's the same as explaining it. At least, I'm maybe honest psychologists don't say that, but that's kind of the general feeling. So if you say, for example, let's say that you have unwanted thoughts. This is a very common psychological disorder, let's say, that you have thoughts in your head that you do not want. And and people would say that, well, that's a psychological disorder. For example, that's part of obsessive compulsive disorder. The obsessive part of that is having unwanted thoughts. Well, think about what that means for a second. Why on earth, explain to me scientifically, why on earth would you have unwanted thoughts? They have no scientific explanation for that. Unless, and if you want to try to come up with a scientific explanation, like the neurons in your brain are firing at random, okay, well, why are the thoughts coherent then? Right? Usually unwanted thoughts follow a certain pattern. They're not just a bunch of random images and symbols that mean nothing. It's a coherent pattern. Generally, a coherent pattern that tends to push your buttons. That happens to be whatever's the most effective at pushing your buttons, at getting at your weak spots and your insecurities. Right? Wouldn't it be, and we say, okay, well, we call it OCD, it's obsessive compulsive disorder. That explains it. Done. Explained scientifically. We got it. Except that there's no explanation given whatsoever for the cause of this thing. None. We just put a label on it. We just take a few symptoms that happen to be related oftentimes, put them together in one category, put a label on it, and you're done. That's how we think of this. But rarely do we actually ask the question, why? Why does the person have unwanted thoughts? Clearly, it's not just random neurons firing in the brain, because it's too orderly for that. Well, I would posit to you that, as keeping with the true nature of psychology, that it's caused by spirits. It's caused by outside spirits. Why would you have a thought that you don't want to have? It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Why, if you have control over your thoughts, if you have control over your mind, your brain, why would you have a thought that you don't want to have? Unless that thought is being placed there by some outside entity that has some communication link in some way. In the past, and most people believe that at least in the past, if not presently, or even presently, in extreme cases, people can be possessed by demons, or possessed by unclean spirits, to use the biblical term. Well, is it possible that there are lighter levels of possession, that you don't have to be fully possessed. And when I say possessed, generally that means that the demon has full control over your body and you have no willpower of your own. The demon has taken over, has conquered commandeered your body and is using it for itself. Well, if the demon or the unclean spirit is capable of doing that, doesn't it follow that there should be lesser levels of influence, that the lower spirit can influence your thoughts without completely taking over your willpower? And perhaps that is the stepping stone to the point of completely taking over your willpower. But that's an extreme case, and like most things, the extreme case is the exception, and the milder cases are quite common. So doesn't it make sense that if you're having unwanted thoughts, then those thoughts are being put there by a spirit that is not you? If you believe that you have a soul, if you have a spirit of your own, clearly there's some connection between your spirit, your brain, and your body. I believe that the brain is a mediator between spirit and body. It is the means of connection, that the brain doesn't actually think itself. The brain is like the switchboard that the mind, which is the real thinker, controls, and through which it expresses itself in the bodily functions. Well, if that's the case, then wouldn't it make sense that or at least be plausible that another spirit other than your own soul could shove your spirit aside and take over the controls in certain circumstances? I think it's completely possible. I think it happens every single day, and we're just so stupid, arrogant, and blind that we just shunt it into some psychological label and say, that's it, we explained it. There's no more demon possession anymore. Now we're good. Let's just take a whole bunch of pills and just self-congratulate ourselves because of how cool and how much we believe in science. Look how smart we are. We got everything figured out. So that's it for tonight. I'll talk to you in the next one.